So it was a very, very basic question to you both. Do you agree with Sheila Braverman, let's start with Sophia, that this march next Saturday is a hate march?
So definitely there are some people who are taking part in that march who are there to stir up hatred, to stir up confrontation with the police, to deliberately provoke anger, and some of their language will be very violent, as we've seen now. There's been 3 consecutive weekends of this march or equivalent happening. Although obviously there will also be some people who are there for peaceful reasons. They want to, what they highlight, the civilian suffering in Gaza.
Which we can never forget.
Which is important to include. But I do think, yes, some of this language is very hate-filled. They're calling for the annihilation of the State of Israel. Some people on this march, they're calling for violence against Jewish people, both at home and abroad, some people on this march. So it is a mixed bag, and I am concerned that it is going to spill over into even more violence. We've already seen lots of Jewish people in London feeling very unsafe, and a rise in anti-Semitism, 14-fold rise in anti-Semitism.
Is Sheila Braverman actually guilty of stirring things up by calling it a hate march? Do you think that's responsible language from the Home Secretary?
I think that potentially it's not. I think it's important that she can provide some of that way of de-escalating situations and having that level-headed voice in this situation, because the more it is deemed a hate march, the more people will see it as an opportunity to be hateful and to bring that hateful and violent language. So I think it's on her to try and de-escalate this situation. Well,
the Prime Minister has written to Mark Rowley, who is head of the Metropolitan Police. He is the Commissioner, and it's a long letter. I'll not read out the whole thing, but he says these decisions are rightly operationally independent from politicians. I'm not sure he's right there. I think legally he could ban it if he wanted to, on the basis of a full operational assessment and engagement with protest organisers and the wider community. I've asked the Home Secretary, Rishi Sunak says, to support you in doing everything necessary to protect the sanctity of Armistice Day and Remembrance Sunday. You will have mine and the government's full support in making robust use of all your powers to protect remembrance activity. How much of this is political, Ed, and how much of this is about wanting the freedom to protest, the kind of freedoms that actually people died for in the war?
I think it's very political. I'm not sure well, it's an easy... The Conservatives haven't had a lot of good news recently, and this is the one thing they can hang their hat on and say, we are cracking down on a hate march, which to my mind...
But they're not. They're not banning it. They're not saying it actually can't go ahead.
Exactly, but that's my point, as in they can make a big show, and then they can point to the blob has stopped us banning the hate march. So they can rally to their base, to their supporters who oppose this march for peace in the Middle East, which I don't think a march for stopping bombing children can be called a hate march. I think it's largely political.
It's interesting, the march, though, there are people on it who do want to bomb children. They want to bomb Israeli children. They support Hamas terrorists, for example, but not everybody thinks that on the march. And we need to be really careful about generalising what tens of thousands of people think. For example, I wouldn't dream of joining this march. It wouldn't be something that I would do. But there are peaceful people. You can call them naive if you want to, or you can call them people who simply support a Palestinian state. And we need to be careful about that, don't we?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really unfair to tarnish everyone on this march as anti-Semitic. I think it's very important to distinguish between criticising Israel and being anti-Semitic. Obviously, the rise in anti-Semitic language, anti-Semitic violence in the UK is very worrying.
But you can understand it, Ed, can't you, when you see that there are numerous people, and really perhaps the only thing that they will see from that are some really, really hateful things, like people shouting jihad, like people having mocked up babies with blood all over them and bouncing them on a Palestinian flag. I mean, there's some really, really astonishing scenes that we've seen from those marches, and lots of people find that even that aspect of it, never mind the whole thing, deeply offensive.
Absolutely, but they should also find offensive the images of children being bombed in hospital in Gaza, and that's what these people are opposing. I think that's there's the issue here is the consistent bombardment of Gaza by Israel, and these people are calling for a ceasefire.
Well, what about what Hamas terrorists did on the 7th of October?
Absolutely, neither are acceptable. Yeah. No one is condoning the death of children, and
sure.
Especially not the people here who are calling for peace.
Okay, we've got quite a lot of reaction to this already. Angus is being in touch from up north, who says, Peter, while Gary Lineker may not know what the protesters may be thinking next week, and he can certainly hear what they're saying, if he cannot say anything sensible, he needs to keep stum. Yep, Angus, you're right. Mick in Wallington says, if we are serious about public safety, Mark Rowley must be put on notice. His job is on the line this weekend, but will probably get a peerage. Dan in Epsom says, Peter, tens of thousands of football fans are going next weekend to defend our traditions and heritage because our weak government are useless. Police refuse to. Millwall, Palace and West Ham. I mean, the sort of crowd control aspect of this, Ed, is a major thing. Now, we have the Palestine Solidarity Campaign. We did ask them on this programme. They do somehow seem to be able to do other stations. They did Times Radio this morning, but they somehow didn't have time for us. I don't know why. We're going to keep asking them anyway. I am here today. I'm here tomorrow between 10 and 1, and actually I'm here Monday to Friday between 3 and 4 as well. So if the Palestine Solidarity Campaign want to come on and speak to me, they're very, very welcome. But Ed, just on this point of crowd control, it is a big thing, because the Palestine Solidarity Campaign is saying, well, actually, there's nothing to worry about. We're on the Saturday, it doesn't start till 12:45, but actually people will be moving at that time, and there is a security aspect to this in regard to both the people on the march and also people who may not want the march to go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. But what are the concerns? Are the concerns that the peace?
I think it's public order.
I think that speaks to the point then that you and Sophia were making earlier about the responsibility Suella Braverman has not to inflame these tensions. I think that your texter who's written in to say that a football fan will be guarding the cenotaph. I don't think that's very conducive to public order, and these people would not have been making that decision had it not been stirred up with the irresponsible language by people like Suella Braverman.
Well, it's not just Suella Braverman. I mean, the fact that don't the organisers of the protest have a responsibility too, Ed, to say, actually, hold on a second, we've had 3 weeks here. There can be nobody who really doesn't know that we're against what is happening in the Middle East. Why don't we just give it a rest for one Saturday? It's Remembrance Day. Because
the issue is still ongoing. I think.
Why can't they just wait till the next Saturday?
Because what would the benefit to the campaign be? It's a sustained.
I think
campaign.
A lot of people would actually admire the campaign and would actually say, do you know what? You've listened. You realise that Remembrance Day is something that is really sacred to a lot of people, and you've said we're going to give it the space, just as we will give you the space next Saturday to do what you want to do.
But is Armistice Day so sacred as to preclude all other thoughts? Do you think
Well,
so?
I don't think it should necessarily preclude things. I'm saying my argument is essentially that we should persuade people. I don't think we should ban the march. I think we should persuade them and say, look, you have a very strong point to make. This is very sadly Israel-Gaza. It is not going to go away. It is still going to be there in a week's time. You've had your protest for 3 weeks. Just give it 1 week off and come back the following week.
I don't particularly agree that it's disrespectful to have the protest on Armistice Day. What is disrespectful about this?
I think it distracts from it, and I think a lot of people find it offensive. Rightly or wrongly, a lot of people find it offensive.
Yeah, I think people can have two opinions at once. People could have a minute's silence at 11 and then go on the way to the peace march. It's completely plausible.
Okay, Sophia, what do you think?
I think that they should be stopping it. It's really sad to see some of the councils.
You think the government should stop it, or do you think the organisers should stop it?
I think the organisers should step back. It's really sad to see those who have fought in wars protecting freedom for this country having the event where they look forward to all year, where their sacrifice is finally recognised and put front and centre. To have that curtailed. Councils are talking about axing events for Armistice veterans on that next weekend because of these protests. That's really tragic.
Well, that is tragic, but the point I suppose I would make in counter to that is actually, if you have people who have been fighting for our freedom, surely it's the freedom to dissent, surely it's the freedom to protest, the freedom for free speech. Surely, actually, that's the point of the fact that we live in a free society.
Absolutely. That's why I don't think the government should ban it. But I do think to gain the public support, which supposedly this march wants, although I question whether they actually want public support or they actually just want violence. If they want that public support, then they should be stepping back. But I don't think it's for the government to ban marches. We should be a place where we can have freedom of speech, have freedom of assembly, all those things which are central to our democracy. But we should, if they want to be persuasive, they should step back and understand that it's an important day for people.
If it's peaceful, if it's not inciting hatred, if it's not supporting Hamas, which is a proscribed terrorist organisation, go ahead. Fill your boots.